Meanwhile, we're now joined by Sam Champion of the Weather Channel. He joins us via Skype. Sam, I know you're in Juno Beach. That's just north of West Palm, just south of Jupiter, and just a bit south now of where Matthew is bumping up against the coastline. What are you seeing?
Hey, Josh, we're really happy to be that far south of what this storm is doing right now. What I really want to let everybody know is this is the shredding damage. Everything you're seeing today on CBSN is exactly what you would expect to see as a storm rides along the coastline, as it hugs the coastline. You're not seeing that big impact damage. You're not seeing windows blown out. You may not be seeing buildings torn apart, but what you're seeing is that shredding damage. The tree limbs down, the trees down, the roofs torn off, the signs torn apart. That's what it's like when you've got several hours under tropical storm force or minimal hurricane force winds, and that's what we're going to see until this eye wall comes on shore. Then everything changes and you're going to start to see the bad impacts of this storm. And I do think we will see it. I mean, I think we're going to see them. The storm is so close to Daytona right now. I think St. Augustine, as that eye wall kind of breaks apart a little bit, breaks away and widens a little bit. Wherever it makes impact, you're going to get that 90, 100 mile per hour wind gust. You're going to get that damage that everyone was expecting to see in Central Florida, but this storm was just a little bit far off the coastline to give that kind of damage. We've got more than 500,000 people without power. That's significant. As this eye wall comes onshore, I expect that number to double. And remember, I want everybody in North Florida, actually South Carolina, even Georgia, that Georgia coastline, to be paying very close attention. I don't feel like this storm turns until it turns. And I know everyone gives a forecast and everyone thinks this thing is driving like a road map, but it's not. It hasn't done exactly. It's been off by about 20 or 40 miles. But give the Hurricane Center a break here, Josh, because 20 or 40 miles is it's a good forecast for this storm. And I feel good about getting people out of the way. Let me just show you what I mean by the shredding damage and what people are waking up to this morning. All over the internet, you've got arcing, blowing power lines. That's the kind of thing you're seeing. You also have this. You've got a tree down just because the ground was saturated. So overnight, if you've had a lot of rain and a wind comes in at about 50 miles an hour, the tree ball depends on dry ground to hold it in place. Those trees, mature trees, come right down. And the problem with North Florida is there's been a stationary front, Josh, stuck in North Florida for days. They've had soaking rain for days. They've had 5, 6 inches of rain in some cases. Now they're going to get additional rain from this storm. The ground's saturated. So what we've seen in Central Florida and South Florida, it's going to double for North Florida. And I'm also concerned about that Georgia shore because of the rain they've had as well in that area. So a lot of tree damage to be expected. Josh, just a quick update, because I know for my Florida residents, I've been checking on this for you guys. And that is Miami Airport is open, limited open. The airport for Fort Lauderdale, which is basically hugs the line with Hollywood, Florida. So it's the Hollywood, Florida, Fort Lauderdale Airport. They're open today as well, but not all airlines are traveling. Most notably, I believe Southwest is not, as of our last update. That may change. I want you to check with your carrier, but as of our last update, they were not. Palm Beach Airport here, nearby where we are, is basically saying, we don't know yet. We need to assess everything that's going on around the airport, how many trees are down, what the damage was, things like that. We did not, Josh, lose power last night, which was a giant surprise. But again, about 500,000 people without power, Josh.
We have seen power at least hanging on there as we've made our way north with our team of correspondents, Sam. We also obviously are hearing a lot about a storm surge. The surge could be well in excess of 10 feet. Obviously, on top of that would be any tidal and wave action. As this storm, though, Sam, makes its way where it is right now, along that Space Coast, on its way to Jacksonville, other than the St. Johns River, there's just not a lot, there aren't a lot of places for all that water to go. What, in a worst case scenario, which again, from the warnings of the Governor Rick Scott on through to this moment, they are dealing and preparing for the worst case scenario. So in a worst case scenario, that storm surge does what?
Well, and Josh, just to be fair, they have to, because the worst case scenario is part of the scenario, is part of the plan. And if you get that 3-foot plus storm surge, you got to be ready for it. And you had to have told people to get ready for it. So if it's a little bit less than that, then that's good news. And people really shouldn't be complaining, oh, we had to get ready for the worst case. No, no, no. That's what you have to do. And because we live in Florida, and because deadly, devastating hurricanes pass by our shorelines and sometimes come across them, we have to get ready. And not just for some storms. We have to get ready for every storm. So here's the worst case scenario for Duval County, Florida's first coast. And Josh, I forecast there for a while. I was Jacksonville's weatherman before I went to New York, and I know this area well. So the coastline is low there, but the worst problem they have is that big St. Johns River, and it's really, really wide once it gets hooks around the curve into Jacksonville. The problem is all this water, and people have said this to you before, but this is true. I just want to make sure I explain it, that the water from the Atlantic gets shoved up against the coastline, has no place to go. So if that's 11 feet of additional water being pushed into all these, and it's not just the St. Johns River, Josh, it is any tributary that connects with the Atlantic that's open. It can be any bay, it can be anything. That's like a wall of water that keeps water from coming out. As long as that force is up against that opening, nothing can come out of there. And there's a lot of inland rain that's trying to come out of there. So there's only one place for that water to go. It can't stay within the banks. It overflows the river banks. It overflows the bay banks, and it goes right into homes and businesses and streets and communities. That's the only thing that can happen. And it will happen to a certain extent in all of these areas because that water is being blocked from getting out of Florida and into the Atlantic. Additional water is coming in, so we are going to see some flooding. And the reason the Hurricane Center and every emergency manager wants you to prepare for the worst is that if they don't tell you that it could be 4 feet, 5 feet, and you prepare for 2 feet and you get flooded, whose fault is that? So, you know, they want you to know that this is possible. It is in the realm of possibility, and it is very likely with this storm.
So, and Sam, as you mentioned with regard to the track, that perhaps a bullet has been dodged to a degree, at least as this storm and the eye wall specifically has remained offshore. You mentioned those warnings, increasingly dire warnings. We heard the governor say very simply yesterday, this storm will kill you if you do not evacuate now. To the best of your knowledge there then, in the greater Palm Beach area, I know the storm's already pushed through, but what was your sense of the evacuation process yesterday?
So proud of Florida. And listen, Josh, I know how inconvenient it is when we go on TV and we tell you, and we make it sound so simple, and we say, gather up your family, get your belongings, and get out of your house and get inland. Like that's an easy thing to do, and no one thinks it's easy. But here's the deal. Florida did it. And I'm so proud. And I know that today there's going to be a little grumbling where people are packing up the cars in Central Florida and South Florida. Now, please don't think I'm giving you the all clear in North Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. I'm not. I'm talking about the storm, the areas that this storm has already been past. So those folks are coming back into their homes. North Florida, you need to have planned to get out. Georgia as well. There's some cases if you're near Daytona and you haven't left, and you're near St. Augustine and you haven't left, you need to stay in place because now it's more dangerous for you to be out on the roads. But just to answer your question, Josh, and talk about what happened south of all of this, where the storm is pulling north and away, people are coming back into their homes later on today. Basically, everyone's asked to give them a few hours, make sure these roads are clear. There's a lot of power lines down. There's a lot of trees down. The good news is there's not giant structural damage in Palm Beach County that we've seen. We've seen some billboards down and some signs shredded apart, that kind of thing. That's good. But when people come back to their homes, I just want them to feel like today, and even though it was a major inconvenience, Josh, I want them to know they did the right thing, and they should do it again. If there's ever a 3 or 4 that's moving by their homes or toward their homes, the right thing to do is to get out of the way, because this storm at a Category 4 would have truly been deadly had it just moved 20 miles closer to the coastline. That's a huge thing. And there'll be a lot of people who are misinformed or uninformed that are looking at the TV today going, I don't know what they were saying, why they were making a big deal out of it. They're making a big deal out of it because that storm was so far offshore, and look what happened. Had that storm been on the coastline, it would have been I would not want to be doing this today. I would not want to be talking about TV today if that storm had come on shore anywhere near here.
Certainly considering the deadly impact that we saw the storm as it tore through the Caribbean.
Oh, sure.
Haiti in particular. Again, it is perhaps there's a measure of good news to be taken there. Again, Sam, I know you'll be with us throughout the day here on CBSN. Sam Champion, my friend, as always, we appreciate the time and insight.
See you, John.